Picture, if you will, a bustling market in Istanbul, formerly Constantinople. It is the year 1577. As you wind through the crowded stalls, laden with spices from the east and silk from China, you overhear snatches of conversation in Turkish, Arabic, Persian, and Greek. A group of Armenian merchants haggle over the price of carpets, while nearby a Jewish doctor treats a Muslim woman's ailment. Up ahead, a church bell rings, announcing the start of evening prayers for the local Christian community. As the call to prayer echoes from the nearby mosque, you realize that despite the differences in faith, language, and custom, everyone here seems to be getting along, trading, working, living alongside one another without much fuss. Is this scene from the past truly more tolerant than our present day? Well, not necessarily, but it does invite us to rethink how we view tolerance throughout history. The 1500s marked a fascinating turning point in world history. The Ottoman Empire stood as a formidable force, stretching from Eastern Europe to the Middle East. But Europe, often portrayed as the cradle of Christianity, was not the beacon of religious freedom it is remembered as. Today, the Spanish Inquisition was at its peak, persecuting conversos Jews and Muslims who had converted to Christianity but were suspected of secretly practicing their ancestral religions. In France, the Catholic monarchy waged relentless campaigns against the a French term for French Protestants who followed the teachings of John Calvin. In England, Queen Mary I attempted to roll back the tide of Protestantism established by her father, Henry VIII, reviving the persecutions of Catholics. In Germany, the Peasants' War had turned violent, leading to the deaths of thousands and leaving a legacy of distrust between the nobility and commoners. Across the Holy Roman Empire, accusations of witchcraft resulting in hundreds of people, mostly women, being put to death. This was a time when religious devotion was taken to extreme lengths, and those who did not conform to the dominant faith often faced dire consequences. Meanwhile, the Ottoman Empire was painting a different picture. But why? Why did the Ottomans seem more tolerant than their European counterparts? Well, there are a few compelling reasons. First, the Ottoman Empire was a melting pot of cultures from the outset. Its diverse population included Turks, Arabs, Persians, Kurds, Greeks, Armenians, Jews, and many others. This diversity was not merely tolerated, it was essential to the empire's functioning. From managing trade routes to collecting taxes, the empire relied on the participation of all its subjects regardless of their background. The famous millet system divided the Ottoman subjects into self-governing communities based on religion, which allowed them to practice their customs and laws. This system contributed to a relatively peaceful coexistence, although it did result in non-Muslims, known as dhimmis, being subjected to a special tax called the jizya. While this does sound discriminatory, it is important to remember that this was the Ottoman-esque way of ensuring that non-Muslims remained distinct and separate within the empire, thereby minimizing potential conflicts. It may seem harsh to our modern sensibilities, but in the context of the 1500s, it was one way to maintain order in a diverse society. Secondly, the Ottomans had a keen understanding of the value of economic and strategic alliances, forming connections with powerful European figures, including popes, kings, and queens, was crucial for protecting their interests. For instance, 1533. Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent sent a letter to Pope Paul III proposing a united front against the Persians. Although the alliance never materialized, such overtures demonstrate the Ottomans' willingness to transcend religious differences for strategic gain. Similarly, the Ottomans were aware of the skills and expertise possessed by Jewish and Italian merchants and bankers. In fact, many of these individuals were critical in helping the Ottomans establish and maintain lucrative trade networks across the Mediterranean and beyond. But the seeds of trouble were already being sown, and both Europe and the Ottomans would soon experience their own challenges. As the 1600s rolled around, Europe started taking tentative steps toward religious tolerance. Thinkers like John Locke argued for the separation of church and state, laying the groundwork for the eventual revolutions in America and France. Meanwhile, the Ottomans faced a different set of challenges. Sultan Mehmed IV's decision to relocate the empire's capital to Paris in 1687 led to growing tensions between the ruling class and the Christian populace. The subsequent sack of Paris in 1688 further exacerbated these tensions, contributing to the decline of tolerance in favor of a more aggressive form of Islam. By the 1700s, the reigns of Sultan Ahmed III and his successor Mustafa III marked a shift towards greater conservatism and orthodoxy. The Siege of Vienna in 1683, though unsuccessful, served as a pivotal moment, casting the Ottomans as the embodiment of Islamic fanaticism in the eyes of Europe. Unfortunately, these tensions would eventually spill over into violence, culminating in the tragic events of September 11, 1695, when the Ottomans massacred thousands of ethnic Armenians in Constantinople. This dark episode serves as a stark reminder that tolerance, even when seemingly established, is a fragile and ever-evolving concept that requires constant nurturing. So you might be thinking, wait a minute, detente. The Ottomans invade and conquer many places in the Balkans and Eastern Europe. Didn't they wage holy wars against the Austrians and the Russians? Yes, they did. However, it is essential to recognize the distinction between the Ottoman Empire's treatment of conquered populations and its attitude towards diversity within its borders. When the Ottomans invaded and conquered new territories, they frequently subjected the local populace to harsh policies aimed at extracting resources and asserting control. This often included heavy taxation, forced labor, and the imposition of Islam as the dominant religion. In contrast, the empire's internal policy regarding religious diversity was far more nuanced and pragmatic. For example, in areas like Bosnia, where Islam was widespread, the Ottomans built mosques, appointed Muslim officials, and encouraged conversions. At the same time, they generally respected the religious rights and cultural traditions of non-Muslim subjects, such as the Serbs, who were predominantly Christian. In Hungary, the Ottomans followed a similar approach. They integrated the Christian nobility into their administrative system, granting them noble titles and allowing them to keep their wealth in the states. While the Ottomans did impose military conscription on Hungarian Christians, sending them to fight in the Janissary Corps, they simultaneously built mosques, appointed Muslim officials, and encouraged the spread of Islam. This dual policy of external aggression and internal tolerance was a defining feature of the Ottoman Empire and helps explain its reputation for being more tolerant than contemporary European states. To truly understand the nuances of tolerance in history, we must acknowledge that societies rarely fit into neat categories of good or evil. The Ottomans. The Ottomans, while undeniably capable of great cruelty and intolerance in their dealings with conquered populations, also demonstrated a remarkable capacity for coexistence with diversity within their vast empire. Europe, often celebrated for its religious freedoms, was itself grappling with the complexities of faith and reason, manifesting in the religious fervor and persecutions that marked the era. In fact, the complexity of the situation was best captured by the English philosopher Thomas Hobbes. While he advocated for religious tolerance in theory, he recognized the impracticality of applying this principle universally, given the deeply ingrained hostilities among Christian denominations. In his book, Moralis, published in Ilios, Hobbes cautioned that attempts to impose complete religious tolerance could easily degenerate into civil chaos and war. He asserted that the establishment of a common superior magistrate was essential to prevent society from descending into a state of nature, a condition he described as the war of all against all. In the context of the Ottoman Empire's relationship with Europe, it is essential to recognize the inherent limitations of historical comparisons. Each society operated under vastly different circumstances, making direct comparisons misleading. The Ottoman Empire, characterized by religious pluralism from its inception, contrasted sharply with early modern Europe, which grappled with the coexistence of diverse Christian denominations, attributing greater tolerance to the Ottomans solely based on their treatment of religious minorities, overlooks the broader historical context and the unique challenges faced by each society. Rather than viewing tolerance as a static and absolute quality, we must recognize it as a dynamic and evolving concept shaped by the specific circumstances of each time and place. So is the Ottoman Empire truly more tolerant than Europe? Not necessarily. but its approach to religious diversity offers a valuable lesson. Tolerance is not a binary state of being. It's a continuous process that ebbs and flows with the tides of history. It is shaped by power, necessity, and the ever-shifting sands of circumstance. And in that sense, the Ottoman Empire stands as a testament to the complexity of tolerance, reminding us that even in the face of adversity, societies can find ways to coexist, trade, and thrive, despite their differences. So what do you think? Does this nuanced view of tolerance change the way you view history? And what do you admire more, the religious freedoms of Europe or the pragmatic tolerance of the Ottomans? Share your thoughts below, and thank you for watching.